The transport ships descended through the atmosphere of Refuge 7 like falling stars. Commander Sarah Chin stood on the landing platform, her hands shielding her eyes from the bright sun as she watched the vessels approach. Behind her, a crowd of human colonists waited with the kind of nervous excitement that always came with new arrivals. The Catherine were coming. 3,000 of them, fleeing from something the Galactic Council refused to name. Directly, Sarah had read the reports. The Vorkan Empire was expanding again, swallowing smaller species into their territory. The Catherine were next on the list, and they had nowhere else to go. The first ship touched down with a hiss of hydraulics. Sarah stepped forward as the ramp descended. What emerged made her heart clench in an unexpected way. The Catherine were small, barely reaching her waist. Their skin was a pale blue-green, and their large eyes seemed to take up half their faces. They looked fragile, almost childlike, despite being fully grown adults. Ambassador Kether walked down the ramp first. He moved slowly, his thin legs trembling slightly. When he reached Sarah, he stopped and bowed low. "Commander Chen," he said in perfect English, though his voice was soft and musical, "we thank humanity for this sanctuary. The Council said you were the only species willing to accept us." Sarah extended her hand. Kether looked at it for a moment, confused, before carefully placing his three-fingered hand in hers. His skin was cool and smooth. "Welcome to Refuge 7, Sarah said. "This is your home now for as long as you need it." The words seemed simple, but she meant them with every fiber of her being. Already she could feel that particular human instinct kicking in, the one that made her species adopt stray animals, protect the weak, and form bonds with anything that seemed to need help. She could see the same feeling spreading through the crowd. Behind her, the colonists were already smiling, already moving forward to help with luggage and supplies. Over the next few weeks, Refuge 7 transformed. The Catherine were given their own settlement area, but the boundaries blurred almost immediately. Human children were curious, approaching the Catherine children with toys and games. At first, the Catherine were hesitant, unsure of these tall, energetic beings. But humans had a way of breaking down walls. Maria Torres, a teacher at the colony school, started holding joint classes. Human and Catherine children sat side by side, learning each other's languages and customs. The Catherine children were brilliant, picking up English within days. The human children struggled more with the musical Catherine language, but they tried with enthusiastic determination. In the market square, Catherine merchants set up stalls next to human ones. They sold intricate artwork and strange, beautiful instruments. The humans traded vegetables from their gardens and handmade crafts. Sarah watched as old Mrs. Patterson, a grandmother who had lost her family, the colony wars, adopted a young Catherine couple. She invited them to dinner every evening and taught them how to cook human food. The Galactic Council sent messages, warnings mostly, and GT. They urged humanity to maintain professional distance. This was a temporary arrangement. They said the Catherine would need to be relocated once the situation stabilized. Getting emotionally involved was dangerous. It clouded judgment. It led to complications. Sarah deleted most of the messages without responding. 3 months passed. Catherine were no longer refugees in Sarah's mind. They were neighbors, Friends, family, she saw it everywhere. She looked, human families had Catherine. Families over for barbecues, mixed teams. Played sports in the parks with rules. Modified so both species could participate. The medical center reported that Catherine and human doctors were sharing techniques, learning from each other. Young Tommy Chen, Sarah's nephew, had become inseparable from a Catherine boy named Vellner. They were the same age, both 8 years old. Sarah often saw them running through the colony together, Tommy's laughter mixing with Vellner's musical chirping sounds. They had invented their own games, their own language that mixed English and Catherine words. Then the formal summons arrived. The Galactic Council demanded a meeting. The Vorkan Empire had filed a complaint. They claimed the Catherine were their subjects, technically under Vorkan jurisdiction. They wanted them returned. Sarah attended the council meeting via hologram. She stood in the communication chamber. Her image projected billions of miles away to the council headquarters. Around the circular chamber, representatives from dozens of species looked down at her. Most seemed bored. This was a minor dispute in their eyes. The Vorkan ambassador spoke first. He was a massive creature, his armored body making him look like a walking tank. His voice was harsh and grinding. Catherine belonged to our territory, he declared. They fled illegally. We demand their immediate return. The council members murmured among themselves. Sarah could see which way this was going. Most species wanted to avoid conflict. It was easier to hand over 3,000 Catherine than to anger a powerful empire. The council recognizes Vorkan territorial claims. The chairman began. No, Sarah's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Every eye turned to her. The Catherine are under human protection now, she said. Clearly, they are not property to be returned. They are people. They are our people. The Vorkan ambassador laughed, a sound like grinding metal. And what will you do if we come to collect them? Little human, Sarah looked directly at him. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard as steel. Touch them, she said quietly, and you face all of humanity. The chamber fell silent. Then slowly laughter began, first from the Vorkans, then from others. Humanity was young. Their fleet was small. Their territory was limited. The threat seemed absurd. But Sarah didn't laugh. She simply stood there, waiting for them to understand. They didn't, not yet. The warning had been given, just one warning. That was all humanity would offer. The Vorkan battle group arrived 6 days later. 17 warships dropped out of faster than light travel at the edge of the Refuge 7 system. They were massive vessels, each one bristling with weapons that could level a city from orbit. The fleet commander wasted no time with pleasantries. This is Warm Master Krell of the Vorkan Empire. The transmission boomed across all frequencies. We are here to reclaim our property. Surrender all Catherine refugees immediately or face the consequences. Sarah stood in the command center, watching the tactical display. Her small defense fleet of 3 patrol ships looked pathetic compared to the Vorkan armada around her. The human crew worked quietly, efficiently. No one looked afraid. That should have told the Vorkan something. Warm Master Krell, Sarah responded, her voice steady. The Catherine are not your property. They are under human protection. Leave this system immediately. The response was another Grinding laugh. You have 1 hour to comply. After that we will take what is ours. Sarah closed the channel. She looked at her communications officer. Lieutenant Morrison, a young man barely 25 years old. Send the signal, she said. Morrison nodded and pressed a series of commands across human space. From Earth to the furthest colonies, a message went out. It was simple and direct. The Vorikins had come for Catherine. They had 1 hour to respond. Humanity's response was immediate. Every human who saw the message felt the same thing Sarah felt. Rage, protection, the instinct that said these were their people now, and no one took their people. Down in the settlement, Maria Torres gathered the children, both human and Catherine. Kids looked up at her with wide eyes. What's happening? Tommy asked. Lelner stood beside him, his small hand gripping Tommy's sleeve. Some bad people want to take our friends away, Maria said gently, but we won't let them. Promise. Vellner's voice was barely a whisper. Promise. Maria said. The hour passed. The Vorikins moved their fleet closer. Sarah watched them approach, her jaw tight. She had sent requests for reinforcements to every human military installation with a range. The closest ones were 3 days away. She just had to hold out. Vorikins didn't wait. Shuttles launched from their ships, dozens of them carrying armed troops. They descended toward the planet's surface in a coordinated assault pattern. Sarah ordered her small defense force to intercept, but they were overwhelmed. Within minutes, the Vorikin shuttles punched through and landed on the outskirts of the Catherine settlement. The troops that emerged were heavily armored soldiers, each one standing nearly 8 ft tall. They carried weapons designed to stun and capture, not kill. They weren't here for war. They were here for collection, but they hadn't counted on the humans. The colonists of Refuge 7 were farmers, teachers, engineers, and families. They weren't soldiers, but they were human, and their friends were in danger. They met the Vorikin troops with whatever they had. Farming equipment, tools, their bare hands. They formed a line between the Vorikins and the Catherine homes. Stand aside, the Vorikin commander barked. This does not concern you. Like hell it doesn't, shouted Marcus Webb, a farmer who had been teaching Catherine families how to grow earth vegetables. He held a plasma torch, and shaking hands, the Vorikins moved forward. They used stun weapons to drop the humans. Pushing through the line, the colonists fell one by one, their bodies hitting the ground unconscious, but they kept coming. More humans rushed forward to replace those who fell. In the chaos, a squad of Vorikins broke through. They stormed into homes, dragging out Catherine families. The Catherine screamed, terrified, as they were hauled toward the waiting shuttles. Human children ran after them, crying, trying to pull their friends free. That's when the shooting started. A Vorikin soldier, frustrated by a human woman who wouldn't let go of a Catherine child, switched his weapon to lethal mode. The plasma bolt caught her in the chest. She died instantly. Her name was Jennifer Oakes. She had 2 children of her own. The Vorikins killed 2 more humans in the next few minutes. Then they shot an 8-year-old boy who threw himself in front of Vellner. Tommy Chen died with his arms wrapped around his best friend, shielding him with his small body. The Vorikins captured 47 Catherine and retreated to their shuttles. Behind them they left 3 human bodies and dozens of unconscious colonists. They left grief and rage and Something far more dangerous. They left humanity with a reason to do what humans do best. The footage was captured by security cameras and personal devices. It spread across human space faster than light itself. Within hours, every human in the galaxy had seen it. They saw Jennifer Oaks die protecting a Catherine child. They saw Tommy Chin's final act of friendship. They saw Catherine families torn apart, screaming for help. Earth's response came within 12 hours. The Secretary General appeared on every screen, every channel, every frequency. The Vorkin Empire has committed an act of war against humanity, she declared, her voice cold with controlled fury. They were warned, touch the Cathin. We said, and face all of humanity. They chose to ignore that warning. They killed our people. They took our friends. As of this moment, humanity declares total war on the Vorkin Empire. There will be no negotiation. There will be no surrender. There will be no peace until every Catherine is returned, and the Vorkins understand the cost of their actions. The Galactic Council immediately called for calm. They sent urgent messages to Earth, begging for restraint. This could be resolved diplomatically. They insisted war was unnecessary. Humanity's response was simple and final. We gave them one warning. They chose to ignore it. Now they face the consequences. Across human space, fleets mobilized, military vessels powered up their drives. Civilian ships volunteered to carry supplies. Private corporations offered their resources. Every human colony contributed what it could. The galaxy watched in shock as humanity transformed from peaceful newcomers into something ancient and terrible. They saw a species that would go to war, not for territory or resources, but for friendship, for bonds freely given and fiercely protected. The Vorkins, still in orbit around Refuge 7 with their captured Catherine, received their own message. It was from Sarah Chen. You have 48 hours to return every Catherine unharmed, she said. After that, we're coming for them, and when we arrive, you'll understand why our warning should have been heeded. Warm Master Krell laughed when he heard it. Humanity's nearest fleet was days away. He had plenty of time to leave the system and return to Vorik in space. The humans had proven themselves foolish and weak. He couldn't have been more wrong. Warm Master Krell was preparing to leave the Refuge 7 system when his sensors officer made a sound of confusion. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures, multiple faster than light transitions. Something is coming. The human reinforcements, Krell said dismissively. They're still days away. According to our intelligence, sir. They're arriving now, right now. Tactical display exploded with contacts. Ships dropped out of faster than light travel in perfect formation surrounding the Vorkin fleet, not the 3 or 4 vessels Krell expected, hundreds of them, warships, carriers, destroyers, and vessels of designs the Vorkins had never seen before. Where did they all come from? Krell's second in command whispered. The answer was simple and terrifying. They had always been there, hidden in asteroid fields, cloaked in planetary orbits, disguised as civilian vessels. Humanity had been building in secret for decades, preparing for the day when they would need to protect someone, anyone, everyone. The human fleet commander opened a channel. Her face appeared on Krell's screen. Admiral Patricia Walsh looked like someone's grandmother, white hair, kind eyes, soft features. She spoke with The gentle tone of someone explaining something to a child. Warm Master Raster. Krell, you have taken something that belongs under our protection. You have killed our people. You were given fair warning. Return the Catherine immediately and prepare to be boarded. You will be taken into custody and tried for your crimes. Krell's mandibles click together in anger. You dare threaten the Vorkan Empire. We are the dominant military power in this sector. Your little fleet is nothing, Admiral. Wash smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Fire, she said simply. Human fleet opened up with coordinated precision that spoke of years of training and preparation. Their weapons were advanced beyond what the Galactic Council believed humans possessed. Rail guns fired slugs at relativistic speeds. Laser arrays carved through Vorkan shields like they were paper. Missiles that thought for themselves, adapting to enemy countermeasures in real time. But it was the tactics that truly terrified Krell. Humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They used kamikaze drones packed with explosives, sacrificing machines without hesitation. They fired weapons from angles that risked hitting their own ships, trusting their fleet. Coordination, absolutely, they took risks no sane military commander would take. 3 Vorkan warships were destroyed in the first 5 minutes. 3 more were crippled. Krell's flagship shuddered as human fire tore through its shields. Return fire, Krell roared. The Vorkan fleet fought back, but they were outmaneuvered and outgunned every time. They tried to focus on one human ship. 3 more appeared to cover it. Humans fought as a single organism, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be. On Refuge 7's surface, Sarah Chin watched the battle unfold on her screens. Around her, the colonists gathered, holding each other. They had buried Tommy Chin that morning along with Jennifer Oakes and Michael Tors. The grief was still raw, but now they saw humanity's response. They came. Maria Tors whispered, tears streaming down her face. They all came, and they had ships from Earth, from Mars, from colonies scattered across human space. When the call went out, every human vessel that could carry a weapon or crew had answered. Private security forces, corporate defense fleets, even civilian ships retrofitted with weapons. They came because humans had been attacked, because their friends had been taken in orbit. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Vorkans were experienced warriors, but they had never faced an enemy that fought with such ferocity. Human ships that were disabled didn't retreat. They rammed Vorkan vessels, their crews evacuating at the last possible second. When the Vorkans tried to target civilian areas on the planet below as leverage, human ships threw themselves into the line of fire without hesitation. The tide turned completely when the human special forces units began their assault. Boarding pods launched from human carriers, attaching to Vorkan ships like metallic leeches. The pods cut through hulls, and human soldiers poured inside. They wore powered armor that made them look like mechanical demons. They moved through Vorkan ships with brutal efficiency. Their primary objective was simple: find the Catherine. Everything else was secondary. Lieutenant James Rodriguez led Strike Team 7 into the Vorkan flagship. His squad of 12 Marines cut through security forces with weapons designed for close-quarters combat. The Vorkans were larger and stronger, but the humans were faster and more determined. Contact detention area located. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. His team breached the holding cells. Inside they found the 47. Catherine huddled together, terrified and traumatized. Many showed signs of rough handling, some were injured. Young Catherine girl looked up at Rodriguez. She was shaking, her large eyes filled with tears. Human, she whispered in broken English. Rodriguez removed his helmet. His face was scarred and hard, but he smiled gently at her. Yeah, kid, we're human. We're here to take you home, the Catherine began, crying not from fear now but from relief. The humans moved among them, providing medical aid, offering words of comfort. Rodriguez picked up the young girl, holding her carefully. It's okay, he said softly. Nobody's going to hurt you anymore, we promise. Get on. Strike teams across the Vorkan fleet reported similar successes. All 47 Catherine were recovered within the hour. Not one was left behind. On the flagship's bridge, Warm Master Krell found himself surrounded by human Marines. His crew was dead or captured. His fleet was in ruins. Of 17 warships, only 5 remained functional, and those were heavily damaged. Admiral Walsh's face appeared on his screen again. Catherine have been recovered, she said. Your fleet is defeated. You have 2 choices, War Master. Surrender now and face trial or die here. Choose quickly. Krello looked around at the humans surrounding him. Their weapons never wavered. Their eyes held no mercy, only grim determination. He had been a soldier for 40 years. He knew when a battle was lost. I surrender, he said. Quietly, the humans didn't celebrate. They simply went about their work with quiet efficiency. Medical teams treated wounded from both sides. Engineers began documenting the damage. The Catherine were transported down to Refuge 7, reunited with their families and human friends. When Vellner was returned, he ran immediately to the memorial where Tommy Chin had been buried. He knelt by the marker, his small body shaking with sobs. His parents stood behind him along with Tommy's mother. No words were needed. The grief was shared. But while Refuge 7 celebrated the return of the Catherine, something else was happening. Across human space, the war machine continued to mobilize. More fleets gathered, more troops trained, more weapons were manufactured, because humanity wasn't done, not by a long shot. The Vorkans had killed 3 humans. They had kidnapped 47 Catherine. They had ignored humanity's warning. Battle at Refuge 7 was just the beginning. Justice had been served here, but the debt wasn't paid. Admiral Walsh sent a message to the Vorkan Empire's home government. It was broadcast across the galaxy so everyone could hear. You attacked people under our protection. You killed our friends. You were warned what would happen. We have recovered the Catherine, but that doesn't end this. We're coming to your territory now, and we're going to make sure you never threaten anyone we care about ever again. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity's fleets began moving toward Vorkan space. Galactic Council called for restraint. They begged for peace talks. They offered to mediate. Humanity ignored them all. The message was clear and terrible. Touch humanity's friends and humanity would come for you, not with negotiations or sanctions, with fire and fury and the absolute determination to protect those they had claimed as their own. The warning had been given. It had been ignored. Now the galaxy would learn what that truly meant. The Vorkan High Command expected humanity to stop after their victory at Refuge 7. They expected negotiations, demands, perhaps some territory exchanged. That's how galactic politics worked. You fought, you reached a stalemate. You talked, humanity didn't stop. 20 human fleets, each containing hundreds of warships, jumped into Vorkan space. Simultaneously, they struck military installations, orbital defenses, and fleet staging areas across 17 systems. The attacks were coordinated with precision that shocked military analysts. Across the galaxy, this wasn't the action of newcomers, this was the work of a species that had been planning for war from the moment they reached the stars. The Vorkan response was immediate and massive. They called up their reserves, mobilized their home fleets, and prepared for a war of attrition. They had the numbers, they had the territory, and they had centuries of military tradition. Humanity had been in space for barely a century, but numbers didn't account for motivation. Admiral Chen, Sarah's older brother and commander of the 3rd Fleet, led the assault on the Vorkan colony of Hesketh Prime. The planet housed militaries and training facilities. It was heavily defended. Vorkans assumed it would take weeks to crack. Chen's fleet arrived and immediately broadcast a message to the planet's surface. All non-combatants have 6 hours to evacuate. All military personnel have 6 hours to surrender. After that, we're coming down. We don't want to hurt civilians, but we will end your military capability here. Choose wisely. The Vorkan commander on the ground laughed at the ultimatum. 6 hours to evacuate millions. Impossible. This was a bluff. It wasn't exactly 6 hours. Later, human Marines landed. They came in waves, supported by orbital bombardment that was surgical in its precision. They avoided civilian areas entirely. Every strike hit military targets, only barracks, command centers, weapons depots. The humans fought their way through Vorkan defenses with relentless efficiency, but something else happened that the Vorkans didn't expect. Human aid workers followed behind the military. They set up medical stations for wounded Vorkans. They distributed food and supplies to civilians. They helped evacuate non-combatants from war zones. A young Vorkan medic named Thessa found herself treating wounded soldiers when a human medical team arrived. She tensed, expecting to be shot. Instead, a human doctor knelt beside her. Need help? He asked in accented Vorkanen. Thessa stared at him. You're invading us. Why would you help? The doctor shrugged. We're not here to conquer. We're here to make sure your government understands. They can't hurt our friends. That doesn't mean we want innocent people to suffer. He began helping her treat the wounded. Thessa worked alongside him in stunned silence. This wasn't how wars were supposed to work. Across Vorkan space, similar scenes played out. Human forces were ruthlessly efficient against military targets, but went out of their way to minimize civilian casualties. They captured soldiers and treated them well. They left civilian infrastructure intact. They broadcast messages explaining why they were there. The Catherine, the warning, the 3 humans killed. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions. Dozens of species sent diplomatic envoys to both Earth and the Vorkan capital. They begged for peace talks. The fighting had to stop. This could escalate into a sector-wide war. Earth's representative to the Council, Ambassador Michael Ackefer, stood before the assembled species and spoke clearly. We gave the Vorikans one warning, they ignored it, they killed our people, they kidnapped those under our protection. Now they're paying the price. We're not interested in peace talks, we're interested in ensuring this never happens again, but you're destroying them, a council member protested. The Vorikan Empire has existed for thousands of years. You'll wipe out their entire civilization. Akepper's expression hardened. We're destroying their military, their ability to threaten others. We've harmed fewer civilians in 3 weeks of war than the Vorikans killed during their expansion into Catherine's base. Don't lecture us about proportionality. Meanwhile, the Vorikan Emperor finally understood the scope of his mistake. Humanity wasn't going to negotiate. They weren't going to accept reparations or territory they were going to keep coming until the Vorikan military was completely dismantled. He sent a message to Earth requesting direct talks. Humanity agreed, but not on his terms. The meeting would be held on Refuge 7. Where the conflict began, the Emperor would come to them. Emperor Vaskiel arrived with a small honor guard. He was ancient by Vorikan standards, having ruled for 60 years. He had expanded his empire across dozens of systems. He had never been defeated. Now he walked through Refuge 7 spaceport, seeing human and Catherine children playing together. He saw the memorials to the 3 humans killed. He saw the faces of humans watching him with cold, hard eyes. Sarah Chen met him in a simple conference room. No grand halls, no diplomatic ceremony, just a table, chairs, and truth. You understand now? Sarah said. It wasn't a question. Basil's armored body seemed to sag. We underestimated you. We thought your bonds made you weak. Our bonds are our strength, Sarah replied. That's what you failed to understand. We don't form connections casually. When we call someone friend, when we offer protection, we mean it absolutely. You thought we were bluffing. We were wrong. Yes, you were. The Emperor looked at her directly. What will it take to end this? Name your terms. Territory, resources, reparations, anything. Sarah leaned back in her chair. We don't want your territory. We don't want your resources. We want 3 things. First, you will release every single species you've subjugated. They become independent immediately. Second, you will pay reparations to the Catherine people for generations. Third, you will accept permanent human observers in your space to ensure you never do this again. That's not peace terms, Vassal said quietly. That's dismantling our empire. No, Sarah corrected. That's ensuring you never hurt our friends again. You can keep your territory, your people, your culture, but you will never again force another species to submit. You will never again ignore a warning from humanity. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Outside the window he could see playing with a group of children. The young Catherine was laughing, chasing a ball with human kids. He looked happy, safe, and if we refuse, Vaskral asked, though he already knew the answer, then we keep coming. We'll dismantle your military piece by piece. We'll free every species you've conquered. We'll ensure you're never a threat again, but it'll cost lives on both sides. Your choice. The Emperor thought about his empire built over centuries. He thought about his military pride, his people's traditions of conquest. Then he thought about the human fleet tearing through his defenses. He thought about humanity's determination, their refusal to negotiate, their absolute commitment to protecting those they cared about. He made his choice. We accept your terms. The war ended not with a grand battle, but with a signature on a document. The Vorkan Empire began the process of releasing their subject species, human. Observers took up positions across Vorkan space. Reparations started flowing to the Catherine people, but the galaxy had changed. Every species had watched humanity's response. They had seen a young species go to war not for territory or power, but for friendship. They had seen humans fight with ferocity when those they cared about were threatened. They had seen humanity's hidden strength revealed, and they had learned an important lesson. Humanity gave warnings, just one. After that you faced the consequences. The question now was what would happen next, because dozens of other species were looking at humanity with new eyes, some with fear, some with hope, and some with the desperate wish that humanity might protect them too. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Species from across the galaxy had gathered to hear humanity's representatives speak. Some came out of curiosity, others came with hope, a few came with fear. All of them wanted to understand what humanity would do next. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the central podium. She had been asked to speak on behalf of Earth, not because she was the highest-ranked officer, but because she had been there at the beginning. She had given the warning. She had seen it ignored, and she had watched her nephew die protecting his friend. The chamber fell silent as she began. 3 months ago, the Vorkan Empire came to Refuge 7. They came to take people we had sworn to protect. They were told what would happen if they persisted. They ignored the warning. 3 humans died that day. 47 Catherine were taken. A line was crossed. She paused, looking around at the assembled species. Many of you thought we overreacted. You believed our response was disproportionate. You couldn't understand why we would go to war over a few refugees. So let me explain something about humanity that you need to understand. Sarah activated a hologram. It showed footage from Refuge 7, human and Catherine children playing together, families sharing meals, communities helping each other. The bonds that had formed in just 3 months. We don't form alliances based on strategic value. We don't choose our friends because they're useful. We bond with people because of who they are, not what they can give us. When a human calls someone friend, it's not a political statement, it's a commitment. More footage played, this time showing the Vorkan attack, the humans trying to protect the Catherines. Tommy Chen's small body shielding Velner. This boy was 8 years old. His name was Tommy. His best friend was Velner, a Catherine child he'd known for 3 months. When the Vorkans came, Tommy didn't calculate the odds. He didn't consider strategic implications. He saw his friend in danger and he acted. That's what humans do. The chamber remained silent. Even the species that had criticized humanity's response seemed uncomfortable. No, you asked why we went to war. The answer is simple. The Catherine weren't just refugees to us anymore. They were neighbors, friends, family, and we protect our family. Always, without hesitation, without compromise. Sarah's voice grew harder. We gave the Vorkans a warning. One warning because we hoped wisdom would prevail, because we wanted to avoid bloodshed. But when they ignored that Warning when they killed our people and took our friends, they left us no choice. We did what we had to do, she paused again, letting her words sink in. Now I'm standing here because many of you want to know what happens next. You want to know if humanity will become conquerors, if we'll use our military strength to build an empire. The answer is no. We're not interested in controlling others. We're interested in protecting them. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Galactic Council chairman leaned forward. You're saying humanity will offer protection to other species? He asked carefully. We're saying we'll protect those who need protection and ask for it, Sarah replied, but understand what that means. If you come under human protection, you become part of our circle. Will defend you with everything we have, but we also expect you to live by certain principles. No slavery, no conquest, no oppression. We protect people who want to live in peace, not empires who want to dominate others. She looked directly at the chairman. And if someone threatens those under our protection, they'll get the same warning. The Vorikans got just one. After that, they face all of humanity. We won't apologize for that. We won't negotiate about it. It's simply how we are. Over the next several weeks, the galaxy watched as humanity implemented what became known as the Terran Compact of Protection. It was a simple agreement. Species who wanted human protection could request it. If accepted, they would receive human defense guarantees, economic support, and technological exchange. In return, they would agree to basic standards of civilization and allow human observers to ensure compliance. The requests came flooding in. Small species, oppressed minorities, peaceful civilizations living near aggressive empires. They all wanted what the Catherine had. They wanted to know that someone would protect them, that someone cared enough to fight for them. Humanity was careful. They didn't accept everyone. They evaluated each request, ensuring the species truly needed protection and would uphold their part of the agreement. They didn't want to become galactic police. They wanted to create a network of mutual protection and friendship. The Delrian people were accepted within a month. They were artists and philosophers, pacifists who had been raided by pirates for generations. When they came under human protection, the raid stopped immediately. The pirate clans knew what would happen if they persisted. Cartel were accepted next. They were scientists who had made breakthroughs in medical technology but lacked the military strength to defend their research. Human ships began patrolling their space. The corporations that had been planning to steal their discoveries suddenly lost interest. One by one, species joined the compact, not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to, because they saw how humans treated the Catherine, because they believed humanity's promise of protection was real. A year after the war ended, Sarah returned to Refuge 7. The colony had grown significantly more. Catherine had arrived along with Delrians and several other species. The settlement had become something unique in the galaxy, a place where multiple species lived together, protected by humanity's commitment to friendship. She walked through the market square, watching the interactions. A human merchant taught a Delrian how to cook Earth food. A Catherine engineer showed human children how to build crystalline circuits. A Cordal doctor worked alongside a human medic in the clinic. Sarah found herself at Tommy's memorial. Someone had planted flowers around it. human flowers and Catherine crystals that glowed softly in the fading light. Fellner was there, now a year older. He placed a fresh crystal at the base of the memorial. I still miss him, Vellner said quietly in perfect English. So do I, Sarah replied, but because of him, because of all of you, my people are safe now. Lots of people are safe. Sarah knelt beside him. That's what Tommy would have wanted. He didn't think about politics or strategy. He just wanted to protect his friend. That's what makes humans special, Vellner said. You care, really care, not because it's useful or logical, just because. Sarah smiled sadly. Sometimes that gets us into trouble, but it also makes you the best friends in the galaxy. That evening, Sarah attended a council meeting via hologram. The session was about trade disputes and territory claims, standard galactic business, but everything had changed when humanity spoke. Now people listened, not because humans threatened them, but because they had proven something important. They had proven that warnings meant something, that friendship was worth fighting for, that protection was more than just a word. Ambassador Kether, now representing the Catherine people on the council, spoke briefly. A year ago my people were homeless refugees. Now we thrive. We have allies, we have safety, and we have friends who proved they would die to protect us. Humanity gave the Vorkans one warning, just one. That warning should have been enough. It wasn't, and the galaxy learned what happens when you threaten humanity's friends. He looked directly at the council members. I hope that lesson never needs to be taught again. But if it does, I have no doubt humanity will teach it just as thoroughly. The meeting ended. Sarah closed the connection and walked outside. The twin moons of Refuge 7 were rising, casting silver light across the settlement. She could hear laughter from the community center, where multiple species were gathering for an evening meal. She thought about Tommy, about the 3 humans who died, about the cost of standing by their principles, but she also thought about the thousands of beings who were safe now, the species who could live without fear because humanity had shown them what real protection meant. In the distance, human ships patrolled the system's edge, silent guardians watching over, friends ready to respond if needed, ready to deliver a warning if anyone threatened those under their care. Just one warning, that's all humanity would ever give, because after that you faced all of humanity, and the galaxy had learned that was a force no one wanted to face. Sarah smiled and headed toward the community center. There were friends waiting, and in humanity's eyes that was worth everything they had fought for. Warning had been heard. The lesson had been learned, and across the galaxy a new understanding spread. Humanity made friends easily. They bonded quickly. They cared deeply, and they would fight to the last to protect those they cared about. Touch them and you faced humanity. All of humanity always. That was the warning, the only warning, and it was enough.